Welcome everyone to another edition of Hardcore Wrestling Rants. I am your hardcore host, Rickhead, and I'm joined by the hardcore crew. First, from the Skeleton Realms, he's the Lord Skeleton himself, Joseph Knight. Joe, what's going on?
Not much. Ready to jump into this? We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. And then from Lance Moss TV, he's the incomparable Lance Moss. Lance, what's shaking?
Not too much. Just glad to hear a positive update for one of the stories we got to going tonight.
Absolutely. We'll get that in a minute, but right now, let's get to the major topic at hand. Leaping Lanny Poffo, also known as the Genius, passed away last week, and he was only 68. Poffo was the younger brother of the late Randy Macho Man Savage. Poffo is also known as I said earlier, Leaping Lanny Poffo. But then in 1989, when he was in the WWF, Poffo took on the role of the Genius, who managed the late Mr. Perfect. As of this post, there's no real details as to what's going on or why the Famer passed. Joe, Lanny Poffo, I'm sure you knew him a lot more than I did, especially around the territories.
Yes, definitely. He, along with his brother Macho Man Randy Savage, were in the Memphis Southern Territory. Their father, the great Angelo Poffo, they all ran like a little territory called ICW. And basically, that's where they all got their start from. Randy was him and Lanny were a tag team. They teamed together. They fought many wars against the Rock and Roll Express, Jerry the King Lawler, and a couple others. Great. That's where they also met Elizabeth, because she was a commentator then too, and a backstage announcer. So it's kind of a neat little web that they have there. And then he came in as job performance. Randy wanted him there to kind of look out for his family. So he ventured into the WWF at the time. That's what WWE was. And he didn't have the great career like his brother did. Macho went on to many things, many great things. Lanny kind of just fell back a little. He really didn't do much, in my opinion. So, but he did get a couple of little bit matches here and there. One of the main thing is when he transformed into the heelish Genius, he did manage a couple of people. He managed Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig, just to name a few. But besides that, for the after WWF, he went on to do the independent scene. And Lance, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he get into a scuffle with Hannibal?
I guess the true question is who hadn't gotten into a scuffle with Hannibal? I mean, hell, we've all had a couple of rolls with that son of a bitch, but yeah.
Sounds you liked it about as much as Ryback was.
I think Ryback might have him by just a little bit, and I mean just a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, guys, speaking of Ryback, I know we're kind of still talking about Lanny Poffo here. I read a post that he's ready to come back to wrestling now that he's got Ryback, copyrighted and everything. And apparently his first door he wants to knock on is on Tony Khan's door.
Oh, Lordy D.
Yeah.
And you know what? Tony's such a mark for the former WWE people. I wouldn't be surprised he tried to do it, but then I see everybody else voting him down. Ryback, nobody cares for you. Your time has come and gone. You're basically a very bad version of Rhino. And I personally don't want to see him. Here's a guy who, Rick, as well as I do, complained the shit out of everybody not giving him his due. And he did a poll, I think it was, on his Twitter page. Yeah. Lance, why don't you take that over? Go ahead.
Well, it goes like this. And it wasn't just one. It was like 4 or 5. He goes, where would y'all like to see me go? I think it was Impact, NWA, WWE, and ROH, and at the bottom, it had retire. And all five times, it was like 94% retire.
I remember that we had this conversation like a couple of like the last time he had that poll, and I think that was like maybe 21, maybe early
Yeah.
22, something like that.
Yep. And each time he said the accounts were hacked, and it was injustice and all this shit.
Well, I guess we know he got Donald Trump. Donald Trump got that shit from. Because I think he was completely, suggesting his shit was hacked too before Trump said, "Oh, the counts didn't matter, the votes didn't add up," and all that other shit.
Put it like this, Elmos, I think everybody's have had their supposedly Twitter account hacked because of when they post up something stupid. Look at Soraya. Perfect example.
Yeah, no kidding. And the funny thing is about Soraya, now all of a sudden she's a heel. And her and Tony Storm, it was just like overnight, just heels. And does that mean that Britt Baker is a babyface now? Is that what I'm getting, guys?
Oh, we threw Lanny Poffo out. Can't grieve forever. Let's move on to the to the real porn star of the fucking AEW. Go ahead,
Lanny. There are those rumors about Lanny, but
hey, Lanny liked let's
himself.
Yeah, Lanny. Let's address this real quick.
Okay.
Lanny's very feminine, and you saw that from his independent days before WWF, during his WWF. That's why he was known as the poet laureate. And when he became the genius, you could tell he was a little feminine. Now, was he a full blown homosexual? I don't think so. It was that he kept very to himself. But the word around the locker rooms was that Lanny liked to please himself. He was one of those guys that can actually contort himself and give himself a blowjob.
Well, shit. You know what? That's a fucking...
You know what? Good for him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hell, I'd never leave the house. I probably wouldn't have a girlfriend. Yeah.
That's what you call self-service.
Exactly. Shit.
I think my favorite memory of the Genius was when he, in the early 90s Rumbles, he would always do a poem right before the Royal Rumble match.
Yep. I think sometimes his poems lasted longer some of his matches or even his time in the Rumble.
Yeah.
Yep. The only thing I will say this, there's one big incident with Lanny that he is known for, and it happened with him and Mr. Perfect. They stole Hulk Hogan's belt, the only rare time that Lanny fought Hulk Hogan on a Saturday night's main event, if you guys remember that. And Perfect stole the belt, and you could tell this thing was a cheap plastic knockoff. Well, they went to the back. The Perfect had a regular hammer and started hitting the championship belt that was on the floor, and it shattered. In fact, that shattered WWF Winged Eagle belt eventually became the WWE Hardcore title that Mick
Joe,
had.
I've got to correct you on that right there.
Okay.
The fact that the smashed belt became the Hardcore belt is actually a myth.
Oh, okay. Please enlighten me then, because I wasn't aware.
Well, they actually had the smashed belt at the WWE archives, and it's not a fact that it's two different belts.
Okay.
Well, while we're talking about like the Winged Eagle, and again, I know we're still like kind of going back and forth between Lanny Poffo. When
that's okay. Lanny likes to go both ways.
And solo.
Yeah. Cody Rhodes. Well, Cody Rhodes said that if he wins the title from Roman Reigns, he'd like to bring back the Winged Eagle belt. But again, that's something he'd like to have. I don't think it's actually going to happen, guys.
No, you know what? Technically, if he wanted to and it was approved, he could do it.
Yeah.
Hell, they brought back he was the one that actually had the original Intercontinental design look for a while when he was the one that wore when he won it. So they had that ovalish Intercontinental belt, and
With the
then
white strap.
right, and
I
then
remember you brought that back.
right, then he brung the plates with the originals and all that. So he actually could change it, I think, for the time being. You know what? John Cena had his spinner belt. Roman Reigns and everybody has the big WW belt. Like, duh. You know, I think it's time for a change. I think it's time to separate and go start bringing these classic belts. Hell, AEW has some great looking belts. Rick, over in the YouTube chat channel, Terry 3G says,
Welcome, Terry.
evening to all. Dealing with government access stuff sucks. That's what he said. He's dealing with. Didn't you see Joe Biden's fucking State of the Union? The man couldn't comprehend what the fuck is going on in this world.
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, Biden is just one of those just travesty of justice where you only had Donald Trump and you had Biden. It really wasn't a choice; it was a lack of options.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
You know what? And we should vote for the dead guy. That probably works much better.
Yeah, no kidding. But you know what? Moving along, I want to talk. Nick Khan has been more vocal about the company selling the WWE. Um, he said, Khan stated that the company could be sold as soon as up to 3 months. 3 months, guys. Now, we just talked about Cody wanted his new title belt. I don't think that's going to happen if they're selling. If Khan seriously thinks that the WWE could be gone in 3 months. So, I don't know, Joe. With a big company like that, you would think it would take like 3 years, not 3 months.
No, actually, there is. Go over to 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff. He did talk. They did an episode. Now he does a series called Strictly Business, which is everything about the business. I recommend everybody who's interested in learning the business from the business end, not the wrestling end. He talks to the old magazine writers, the people who used to do the music, pretty much backstage stuff you learn. And they did talk about the recent one that they just did, talked about the actual sale. And he was speaking with Brian Bedell, who, if you guys don't know who Brian Bedell is, he was one of the guys who actually was going to fund Eric Bischoff and invest in to buy WCW. And they did talk about the WWE and how it can happen in 3 months. There's a lot of, and I don't remember the everything down to it, but the whole scenario is it can happen. It can happen in 3 months if there's potential buyers. Then they got to satisfy the stockholders. Then they have to go through so many bells and whistles. How it's going to go. At the end of the day, which surprised me, is the fact that they did say, and this is where I was surprised by the comment, is that there is a strong possibility that McMahon himself can buy the company, okay, and you pretty much sell it, but buy it back and turn it into a privately owned business once again. So there is that very strong possibility that Vince can have, let's say, The Rock buy it, or Nick Khan can buy it, and they set up a whole thing where Nick Khan signs the company right back to Vince, keeping his position of whatever Nick Khan does now, and Vince turns it into a private company. So there is a lot of huge possibilities. And yes, there is a thing that in 3 months it could be sold. So there's a possibility NBC is not involved, no longer in it because there's too much money for it. Comcast was involved in it. They're not going to be able to cover the 2 billion that, or maybe that's what they're asking for. So Rick, this could fall back to several people. Even Brian Bedell asked Eric Bischoff during the podcast. He says, "Oh, I thought you were calling me so we can buy WWE when it goes up." So, and he said, "No, I'm not interested." But I'm sure if the money was there and enough investors, but I'm sure Eric would try to buy it out of Vince. But in this case, I think what we're going to see is the company gets sold. Vince takes control of it again and turns it from the public company that it is now to private. So
Well,
that's
let
on
me
that
ask you this
episode.
now. All right, obviously you could take the fact that he's still being investigated due to the sex scandal from his own board. So why sell it to get private and then buy it back? That's like kind of why not just make it go private? How do you just get rid of your stockholders and
You, legally, you cannot get rid of stockholders. You have to either sell the
Yeah.
company or the entity to pay them off. You can't pay them off and then just like, okay, bye guys, you're done. In certain instances, you can, but given that this is a different type of entity and there's a lot of things involved, there's merchandise, there's licensing, there's a whole bunch of other things. The best way around this, because if that was the simple case, Vince would have done that already. He would have got some investors, probably Nick Khan and whoever else, to put money in. They would have bought everybody else and just kicked them out. You can't do that in a corporation that's public because you have to appease the stockholders. And it goes up to the Federal Trade Commission. So you got to go make sure that this is a legal company that's under, how can I put this? It's a company that's being legally sold. So there's a lot of things that in it that you have to do before you can just take it over. Now, nothing stops him from if nobody else has can pull it up because here's another thing too. None of the stockholders have to agree to a potential buyer. Let's say Eric Bischoff came with money. They can look at Eric Bischoff and says, "No, you're not buying it." That's the stockholders.
so they had to agree with all the stockholders, not just Vince. Vince can't, so
Right.
all right.
Vince is majority own stock owner,
Yeah.
but he but he has the other stockholders can, and then again you have to go by the Federal Trade Commission. You got to make sure that that's they're appeased with that it's a legal sale, that it's not switching entities back and forth. So what they're going to do possibly do is, and again, anybody who's listening to the podcast, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in this case, what they can do is technically um just do this, and then if whoever supposedly buys it, okay, can buy it right back, can sell it right back to Vince, and they can sell it for pennies because they own the damn thing. So it's a very very difficult scenario. But when you're dealing with and the thing is, it's a public company, so they have to go through a lot of bells and whistles before they can actually physically sell it. They already have it out in market. You can actually, I believe you can look it up. But in this case too, it's Rick. It's just a matter of finding out who's available to do it, and then again, there's the Federal Trade Commission. There is a lot of stockholders you got to appease. It's not as simple as some people make it be, but there is that thing that they still got to go through so much bells and whistles, but it can be done and it can be sold. And once somebody owns it, like I can own it and just legally sign it over to Vince. Here you go. Here you go, pal. And
Yeah.
he'll give me
Okay.
a lifelong job.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you theoretically, if you sell the company to me, even though through all these little changes, and all of a sudden, let's say hypothetically, I get it, and it's like, you know what? I kind of like this company. I don't want to sell it back to you. I mean,
Yeah.
Lance, that sounds like you'd have to find somebody very, very trustworthy to do this musical chairs type tactics.
Yeah, it have to be either Stephanie, Shane,
I don't think he would do it with
or
Shane. Shane's like,
And
fuck you,
no,
Dad. I'm keeping it.
and it cannot be family members, at least as far as I know.
Okay.
oh, okay, Paul.
Well, yeah,
Technically,
he's
Paul's a family member. He's a McMahon.
Anyway, well, but nevertheless, I mean, maybe you could sell it to Ryback, and Ryback would be dumb enough to say, okay, I'll sell it back to you. Good, now you're fired. Get lost. You know.
Oh God, Ryback Wrestling Entertainment.
Yeah, no shit.
Kevin Dunn.
I would not be surprised, but I think in this instance, I could see a corporation being formed by Kevin Dunn, Nick Khan, and hypothetically The Rock, just to say because The Rock is very loyal to Vince, and I could see them buy quotation marks buy the company, and then from there just sign it back over to Vince, and for pennies, as long as they given an opportunity to keep their not only their positions but maybe get a little bit extra money under the table. That's fine. You can legally do that, and Vince can turn it back into a private company.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move along. WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler was rushed to Fort Myers Hospital last night after suffering a stroke. Lawler did go underwent surgery and is now making a speedy recovery. Thank God, guys.
Yeah.
We know back in 2012, if I'm not mistaken, or 2013, where Lawler had a heart attack on Raw live. So, Lance, this is a really scary thing.
And here's the thing. And I just heard Dutch Mantel explain what happened contrary to the first report. It was not at the driveway of his condo. He was waiting for his girlfriend to come down from Memphis, and he went to the store, and the store he was going to buy groceries. The daughter of the owner is a nurse that specializes in strokes. So she saw it and she got him to the hospital. So he was not found face down in his driveway.
Yeah, that could have gone a hell of a lot worse. So, I mean, talk about...
He saw the price of eggs and he had a heart attack.
Well, the eggs might have been the starter, but I think once he saw the milk, that was it,
And comments like that are one of the reasons Joe ain't allowed in Tennessee.
And again, with Lanny Poffo passing, with this scare with Jerry the King Lawler, with Hogan and his, surgery, getting botched a little. It's we live right now. The great legends of professional wrestling are, and superstar Billy Graham also in the hospital as well. It's a scary time for these great legends, and to lose any more, it'll be such a pity because that knowledge is going to be gone. Guys, what would happen if? How would wrestling be? I don't know if this generation really gives a shit, but hypothetically, and I'm never wish this on them, but what can you imagine the world without a Hulk Hogan and a Ric Flair? We already don't have the Road Warriors. 2 of the 3 Freebirds are gone.
Well, if Hulk Hogan, if he passed away or if he just was never existed, if you're talking about, God forbid, if he passed away.
If he passed, I'm looking at like the world today.
Right now, honestly,
Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair pass.
Honestly, I think at this point they've made their career and now they're retired. Now, God forbid, I don't want to see either one pass away, but unfortunately, that day will come sooner than later. Unfortunately, but I could definitely look back on their legacies they left behind. What Hulk Hogan did for the wrestling industry. I mean, before Hulk Hogan, at least in the WWF, there was no really standout wrestler. I mean, there was Bruno Sammartino, but I think he was the guy who was a changing of the guard. Yeah. He was the one that was getting on TV. He was getting on Saturday Night Live. He was doing movies and other stuff. And so, to me, right now, like I said, Hulk Hogan, he was a benchmark. Ric Flair, you can say the same thing. He may not have went to Hollywood, but when it came to wrestling, that was his life. He
Yeah,
wrestled
he
everywhere.
was Hollywood when it came to wrestling.
Pretty
The glitz
much.
and the glamour.
Exactly. So, Lance, over to you. Your thoughts on Hulk Hogan, if God forbid if he passed away, or other wrestlers?
Well, since Joe mentioned Nate, y'all, hell, there was a time a few years ago we thought we were about to have to be ready for a world without the Nature Boy.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a big scare too. That was before he had his last match. He was in and out of the hospital a couple of times,
Yeah,
and
where he had to be put into a medically induced coma.
yeah, exactly. It was very, very scary. So,
Over in the YouTube channel, Cherry3G says, "You know what's going to be scary? The next wrestling legends will feature John Cena. So can you imagine once these other '80s wrestlers are gone? Can you imagine now you'll have I don't think we'll have the same conversation as we have with Hogan and Flair and all of these guys. Um, can you imagine that you have John Cena, you have Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and those will be the next guys who will
Undertaker.
Undertaker. You know what?
Right.
I kind of throw Undertaker in that almost '80s '90s era because he's been around in the '80s, but he
Well,
was never he was me Mark Callis, but he was never the Undertaker. I don't know. That's a touchy one.
okay, but I mean, like you talk about people like John Cena, who was pretty much during the Attitude Era, and I'll say '90s to 2000s, where Rock was probably like '90s. I don't think he wrestled for more than like 7 or 8 years at most before he went to
Yeah.
Hollywood, and then he came back would wrestle sporadically, and then now he's not wrestling at all. Um, but yeah, I mean, those are exactly other legends that are behind them. Unfortunately, you know, the '80s or the golden eras, Joe, as you were talking about. They still have Bret the Hitman Hart. Those are the great wrestlers that are still there to hopefully um, will stay a little bit with us a little bit longer and maybe add some more to the wrestling legacy in one way or another. Moving on, uh, Trinity Fatu changed her Instagram bio to read "Just Trinity," without any reference to her time in WWE. As last month, there were reports of Trinity possibly coming back to the WWE. There were some kind of talks, but it kind of fell short. Also, WWE's website still has Naomi's profile as an active wrestler. Now, Dave Meltzer said, put us on his report, is that Trinity is now gone from the company. She's not even on the profile. And I'm like, so I had to check it out. And guess what, Dave? You're wrong. She's still there. She's a SmackDown, she's still on SmackDown, guys. Joe, your thoughts on Trinity?
Wow, and she dropped the Fatu out of her name. She doesn't want anybody to know that she's even those public knowledge that she's married to one of the DUI brothers. Um,
I think actually she's married to the brother who has more DUIs. I think,
exact. Yes, she is because I think she was in the car for one.
yes.
I'm like, you dumb motherfucker, and like, oh, oos. There you go, you dumb asshole. Anyway, yeah, Naomi's a really talented girl. She's got the look, she's got the appeal, she's got a great bod. She's I think she just doesn't know how to how to be on her own or be make a right decision in wrestling because look, she follows Sasha Banks and look, while this girl is sitting home, Sasha's making millions doing multiple things. So is it fair? No, but that's what happens when you follow an idiot. So now she took her Fatu name off and she just Trinity and she's no longer in WWE. She could be um she could be testing out the waters. She could probably, who knows, Sasha Banks would be saying, "Hey, I'll give you my scraps. Just come over to Japan," and probably make a deal for her and take some of her money. You know, um, I don't want to see her in AEW. It's already overcrowded. It's too much. Too many women workers there.
What about
We don't need,
Impact?
like I said, we don't need to see her in AEW, and we don't need. She needs to be back in WWE. You want this poor girl who just been through enough to get paid in food stamps? It's bad enough. AEW, what is it? Impact doesn't have a real syndicated show. You know, you don't even know they're in existence. I seen an Impact show. My eyes hurt after a while. So I think her negotiate a better contract, push yourself to be better, and if you have to, and if you have to, come out and be the ooze, like be part of the bloodline, something that generates her character because she's done the tag team thing, she's done the singles options. She went with championship gold for like I don't know like a sneeze. So they need to do something better with her character. She can represent so much. She could be a better representation of the women's division than Bianca Belair.
Well, how about this for a suggestion? Let me throw this one at you. Let's say she comes back under the name S Trinity and joins up with the Bloodlines because the Bloodlines needs a woman.
And that's exactly what I said. She needs that. She needs that type of role to be the badass ooze. No more for the glow. She can toss those shits away and says, "I'm not the glow. I'm not a fucking neon board." Yes, my ass is wide enough that you can broadcast shit on it, but which is not bad. But spank that ass. But she needs to be like the tough, real like bloodline. Like she needs to fill that. Like okay, she's not really a family like Nia Jax or not even Tamina Snuka because she's not in that family.
The Snukas are part of the Inoki clan.
Okay, so well then Tamina and Nia are in that set. She's in it by marriage. So I think if anything, that would be a perfect thing for her. She could announce herself as Trinity Uso and come in and just say, I'm no longer Naomi or Naomi Uso, whatever they want to call her. She could be Naomi Uso and she can say, I'm going to publicly show that I am married to this DOI fucker and I am part of the bloodline. And she could do the whole thing, kiss Roman's ring or whatever the fuck. And she could now, with the bloodlines backing, especially having Paul Heyman, I could see her capture a title and hold it on for a while. With rumor coming this WrestleMania that a lot of the bloodline are going to lose belts. What a way to regroup after WrestleMania, after everybody takes their time off, and have her come back and be part of this now revitalized group without a Sami Zayn, just pure family. That will be a great thing.
All right, Lance, over to you. Your thoughts?
Well, I've heard rumors she wants to have a kid, but I did have an idea of a better job for her. Yeah, she can wrestle every now and then, but she can always they can always just pay her to be her husband's designated driver.
Yeah, she was smart, and she would have sex with the other brother. That way she can have a kid that doesn't come out like a drunk.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
They're both twins. She wouldn't know. Yo, Ooze, can you bang my Ooze? Okay, Ooze, I'll bang your Ooze. Make sure you
they
bang
might
it.
Be a little bit of Three's Company action.
Hey, I wish I was Jack Tripper.
Yeah.
You got Joyce DeWitt in there. That's fine. I wasn't a fan of too much of Suzanne Summers, but I like what was her name? Terry. I forgot the.
The last blonde that was on.
The last blonde.
Yeah. She was kind of hot. I don't know. I like Suzanne Summers. You kidding me? She had a nice body.
Yeah, just her mentality.
Well,
it's like Gilligan's Island. Okay, let's look at Gilligan's Island. Here we go, folks. Fuck wrestling. We're going Gilligan's Island now. Can you imagine all the wrestlers? It is John Cena's island, Skipper, and then fucking a big fat guy. Who's a big fat guy? Otis comes out as the skipper. Like why
Yeah.
like uh, fucking Ted DiBiase's Mr. Howell. You know, fuck. What kind of shit? If who was what? Let's see, Mrs. Howell be Mae Young or somebody or
No, Linda.
Linda. There you
Uh,
go. You have you got Marianne as probably Mickey James as Marianne.
Hell
I
yeah.
mean, think of that shit. But
oh God, Joe.
anyway, yeah, Marianne's a sweet girl, and everybody wants to bang Ginger. But then Ginger's a dumb bitch, so you go back to Marianne. It's like, go
You know
ahead,
what?
let's.
You know what? You know why people want to like bang the dumb bitch? Because they're easy to go. That's why they're easy to get in bed.
Oh yeah,
So hey. But anyway, moving on now. Excuse me. There were rumors that WWE is going to allow NXT wrestlers to work outside the wrestling indies companies. However, Hall of Famer Shawn Michaels cleared things up during the NXT's Vengeance Day press conference. HBK stated that Ivy Neville will be appearing for Booker T's Reality of Wrestling event is a one-shot deal. This was a courtesy to Booker for all his years of dedication to the company. So, despite Dave Meltzer saying, this is going to be a case-to-case basis, no, Dave, sorry, you're wrong again. People in the company who publicly saying it's not happening. It's only one time. One time, Joe, does not mean case-to-case. This is fucking Dave Meltzer on your brain.
you're right, and it's only like I said, it is one time. Eva Marie is Ginger. That's what Terry says.
Well, you said brain dead bitch. So
Yeah, you know, if they did this practice of sending NXT stars to do indies, it wouldn't work for WWE's level because these men and women will get hurt on the indie scene or they'll do stupid matches they're not supposed to. So, yeah, I don't see that happen. At one time, maybe, I don't know what the arrangement or why it happened or what's going on, but, I don't think this is going to be something that they're going to constantly do all the time. I think this is just okay. Let's get this shit done now. You know, let her fulfill her commitments. Maybe it's a family's run promotion, or maybe, and it's Booker T. If I understand his Booker T's wrestling,
yeah.
they just doing it as a favor to Booker to get the, somebody there. Just to help him out because they used to do it with Jim Cornette and Smoky Mountain and Ohio Valley. So and
NWA.
yes, I was about to mention that. Thank you, Lance. I think Jerry Lawler had the better of the talent trade.
Yeah.
All right, Lance. So, what's your take on this? Ivy going to work for Booker T for the one show.
Well, I mean, if it was a favor to T and he might have trained her, which giving back to where you came from, that's cool. But I mean, I can see where them working with select indies would be a good thing because in supposed developmental, the more reps you get in, the better. But also, like Joe said, they'd probably get them into some bullshit and get them hurt, which would cost the company money.
Yeah, and again, I mean, AEW has done it for a while. FDR has spent the last year and a half outside of AEW, and they were racking up titles left and right throughout multiple companies. So that says a lot. Um, so, and we've seen other wrestlers go back and forth and back, like to other companies. So, and I personally think it's a good thing. But WWE has always stayed on its own island. If you're in WWE, there's nothing else out there. Nope, no other wrestling companies that wouldn't even mention it. Unless of course it's one that they purchased.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. All right, guys, we're gonna jump on one last topic here. On the latest episode of Busted Open Radio, Bully Ray gave his thoughts on the AEW Championship being constantly passed around, or as he called it, I like calling it flip-flopped. And he said that if you're gonna flip-flop a title, the television title is definitely one to do it with. You always have the aspect of anything can happen show in any city. People love when they get a title change. So yeah, flip flop that belt. I like to see it often. It doesn't hurt anybody, especially you have to defend that championship every week. Now, Joe, in the past, you and I have had this argument that you don't like seeing belts being flip flopped because you doesn't think it holds anything. But Bully Ray makes a very good point. I want to see that title be on edge. I want to know if that title's going to change.
Well, when it comes to like that version of a title, yes, it can be done. Um, my perspective, if it's a major belt, let's go WWE, the world title, even the AEW's world title. I don't want to see that flipped like willy nilly. I think I pretty much look to try to get that away from there. So that's not much of an issue there. When it comes to the TNT title, yes, I agree the surprises, but again, Rick, when you do too many surprises, then cease becoming a surprise. Like Samoa Joe beat let's go back. Darby Allin beating Samoa Joe. One, it was kind of unexpected. Yeah, and how can this skinny little kid beat this big fat monster? And he did cleanly. With stupid move like a coffin drop. Give me a fucking break. Let me roll over and you hit the ground, I'll roll you up. Um, and then Samoa Joe beating the shit out of him right back, winning the belt back. That's fine. There should be moderation to it. There should be hold the belt for a while, not a long time, but hold it, then lose it, then regain it back, lose it. Ric Flair was great at doing that for the NWA World Title. He will hold it for a year. A contender will come up. He'll feud with them. Bam, belt will change. Like at least 6 months, 3 months later, he would regain the belt back. Kind of gives the belt a flavor. If you start doing it willy nilly, left or right, every time, like Rampage or a Dynamite comes on, then you're losing the purpose. Then it ceases to become a special moment. It's like ECW when they went too many hardcore matches. First time is great to see. Oh wow, they did this. ECW, what? Doing it again and again and again. It's like you kind of okay. We're tuning in. Here comes the AEW TNA title. Okay, let's see it change. That's where they need moderation. You can't keep feeding the frenzies. You gotta cut back. You gotta do it when anybody least expected. And if it happens like Darby Allin winning it by a fluke, then yes, Samoa Joe getting in the ring and pounding the piss out of him, which it should have been in the first place, makes this setup real good. And then Wardlow came back, and now you got that. So honestly, I think that could be, one of the ways of doing things. So, can the title be flipped back and forth? Yes, if it's that particular title, like a TV title, yes, but not all of the time either.
All right. Lance, over to you. Your thoughts.
Well, hang on one second here. Traditionally, the TV title has moved around in, say, in the NWA and other places. Now, granted, ECW had Van Dam hold the damn thing for a year, but traditionally, it does tend to change hands more than, say, the world title. So if they want to do that and keep things interesting, don't hot shot it, mind you, but every, I don't know, month and a half, sure. And every once in a while, lose it, win it right back, okay, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, Terry3G in the chat room said it's like the 24/7 previous hardcore belt over flip flopped too many times and people are just getting no value. And the 24 title / hardcore wrestling championship, yeah, at first it was fun to see some of the spots and how the titles change hands and this and that. But it only holds value for so long before it's like I don't care.
My take on the 24/7, that was Vince giving a bit of a pat on the back to Archer.
Yeah, that's for like basically just giving it to letting the lower card members get in on it.
Saying, here
You
you
know,
go, you're gonna win the most, 24/7 championships, but you'll never get the big one. So hey,
Yeah.
sorry.
I
and
think
you know
Truth
what?
had it like 72 times.
Yeah, and you know what? That's not a bad thing either. It's but again, what happened with the 24/7 title? It becomes a joke. It becomes everybody's winning it, and you
Maria
least expect it.
Maria Kanellis, who was pregnant, won the fucking title. Okay,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
when I saw that, I'm like, all right, give me a fucking break. All right, and that was it. It was kind
Hell,
of
Kane, who is the retired mayor of Knox, Tennessee, won it in the football stadium and then dropped it that night.
yeah.
Terry 3G says the only time the 24/7 belt had any value is when R Truth had it for a while and he was going around paranoid of it being taken.
I remember that story, and
Yeah.
again, that was a little bit of the WWE at that time that I found enjoyable because
Right.
our
And
truth is fucking hilarious.
oh yes he
Yeah.
is. And you know, he didn't know when it was something was going to happen and they used to stage it that way. It was like he would get a beat down and then slowly run away. Crash Holly was another one who did it that same way. People would try to beat him up and he would run out of a hotel room while everybody was fighting and he would come up and get away. You know, it's one of those things where a belt is fine if you have the individual holding it, but to switch it willy nilly, it's not a good thing. It's never great.
All right, and guys, you know what? I think we're gonna wrap up this edition of Hardcore Wrestling Rants. I want to thank Terry G, as always, who hangs out with us. For those of you who are listening, uh, if you want more of our hardcore wrestling rants, you can check us out in the HWR chat room in Facebook in the group section where we post the latest news, rumors, the babe of the day, and I do cover weekly AEW's Dynamite. Joe, you're over at Skull Realms. What's going on?
Well, folks, you can check me out through the hashtag Skullgence Realm. I am on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I'm also on Instagram at Skullgence Realm and on Twitter at Skullgence. I do games from yesterday to today, retro to current, PC to console, and I just finished, Rick. I think you would have liked this. I played Legends of Wrestling 2, and this is the PS2 version. And everybody enjoyed it. Terry came down, and it was like, I just, when you're used to a controller like the Xbox controller, and now you're switching to a PlayStation 2 controller, you kind of try to figure out again how to play a game. Let's just say my character was hitting multiple pile drivers on enemies, but it was funny. We had Jimmy Hart run in and attack me. We had Jerry the King Lawler. Uh, it was the best. It was a fun game to play, and I actually saved it so I can always go back to it. So again, folks, tune in tonight. I'll be going to another retro game, so make sure you tune in, and be sure to support BC Games and More. BC and Mrs. A are always on Saturdays at 9:30. But due to some issues, they haven't medical issues on his family side, family issues. Let me put it that way. They haven't been able to do it, but give them a support anyway.
Absolutely. Best wishes to BC Games and More. We hope you see them back soon. Lance, you're over at Lance Boss TV. What do you got going on over there?
Every Tuesday night we go live with Lance Moss TV and friends. We never know who's going to show up, and there might be an episode of Redneck Gourmet coming in the next few weeks.
All right. Well, there you have it. So, for the hardcore crew, I'm your hardcore host, Rick Head, saying, we'll see you when we see you.
Buy this shirt!
Buy the shirt. We should make a new shirt that says "Below Me" and then Lanny Poffo on it.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Hang on, boss. That's Joe at SkullGenceRealm.com.
Hey, I didn't say anything throughout the whole show.